In my office, the air conditioner made a soft noise. But inside my head, there was a storm of thoughts. Hi, I'm Anna. I'm 28, and I'm a lawyer. My life now is very different from when I was a kid. I had a tough childhood, and I've kept it hidden even from those close to me. The calmness of my office was interrupted by my phone ringing. It showed a number I didn't recognize, but it felt strangely familiar. With a shaky hand, I picked up. "Hello," I said, trying to sound professional but cautious. "It's your father, Anna," the voice said, sounding nervous. A chill went down my spine. I hadn't heard his voice in years. It used to mean safety and love, but now it only brought back betrayal and pain. "Why are you calling me?" I asked sharply. "I'm in trouble, Anna. I need your help," he said, his voice breaking slightly. His plea made me angry. "Now you need me after all this time?" I couldn't believe it. "Yes, I wouldn't ask if it wasn't serious. I'm really in trouble," he continued, sounding desperate. "You stopped being my father a long time ago. You can't just call me now and expect me to help." I replied coldly, my anger unwavering. There was a silence on the line. "Anna, please, I'm still your dad," he said weakly, trying to reconnect with me. But the word dad felt strange and wrong. "You forfeited that title when you chose her over me," I said, letting out years of pent-up anger and hurt. "You're my daughter, I thought," he started. "You thought wrong," I interrupted, cutting him off. "You made your choice years ago, and now I've made mine." He sounded desperate. "I'm sorry, Anna. I just need this one favor." But his apology felt empty. "Sorry doesn't change the past. I can't help you," I said firmly before hanging up. As a child, my life was filled with love and laughter. But that all changed before I turned 10. My parents and I used to live happily in a small rented house. My mom was always full of joy and kindness, making our days bright with stories and dreams. My dad used to be fun and caring. We'd spend evenings playing games or learning new things together. Our house was always filled with happiness, like a cozy bubble where every day was an adventure and every night a sweet dream. But everything changed when my mom died suddenly. Our once joyful home turned quiet and sad, filled only with memories. Walking through the rooms felt like being surrounded by reminders of her absence. The loss was hard for both me and my dad. But strangely, his grief seemed to fade quickly. Within months, he brought home Marissa, who was supposed to be important to us. I remember the day he introduced her. It felt like the end of my happy childhood. "Anna, this is Marissa. She's going to stay with us," my dad said, his voice lacking its usual warmth. I looked at her, hoping to see some motherly kindness, but she seemed cold and distant. From the beginning, something about Marissa felt off. Her presence made the air feel heavy, and I couldn't shake a sense of dread. "Hello, Anna," she said, her voice smooth but lacking any real emotion. Her smile seemed fake, hiding something dark underneath. In the days that followed, the house felt different. It's like the walls themselves were unhappy with her being there. Happy memories faded, replaced by a lingering feeling of unease. I kept watching Marissa, hoping to find something good about her, but I couldn't. But everything she did, every glance, every movement, seemed to hold a hidden dislike. It was clear she wasn't here to fill the gap my mom had left. Instead, she wanted to create a new story where I wasn't welcome. As I watched her move around our home, a place that used to feel safe and happy, I couldn't shake the feeling that her coming was the start of something bad. The way she looked at me with eyes that seemed to hide things didn't promise anything good for the future. The days after Marissa arrived felt like walking through a bad dream. Our once joyful house, filled with my mom's laughter and love, now felt cold and unfriendly. Marissa's presence made everything harder. Even simple things like breakfast became a struggle. One morning, my food tasted too salty. "Marissa, did you put too much salt in this?" I asked hesitantly. "Oh, did I? It must have been a mistake. Just eat it, Anna. Don't be so picky," she replied, sounding dismissive. These incidents kept happening, each one more spiteful than the last. One day, I found my clothes ruined after washing. Marissa, my clothes are all faded. What happened? I asked, holding up my once favorite dress, now ruined. She shrugged, saying, maybe the washing machine is acting up. Or maybe it's time you stop wearing such childish clothes. I felt frustrated, but arguing wouldn't help. I turned to my dad, hoping he'd understand. Dad, Marissa is ruining my things. She's always mean to me, I said one evening, my voice trembling with anger and sadness. But my father didn't listen. Anna, you're imagining things. Marissa is doing her best to fit into our family. Stop causing trouble, he said sternly, his words hurting me deeply. Every day became a struggle, trying to deal with Marissa's hostility and my father's indifference. The home that used to be my sanctuary now felt like a prison. I spent more time in my room, trying to escape the tension. Living with Marissa was like living in a nightmare. I missed the happiness my mom brought, the contrast to the darkness Marissa brought. Living with Marissa turned into a daily struggle. Her hostility grew from words to actions, sometimes hurting me physically. It started subtly, with pinches on my arm or twists on my stomach, always where they wouldn't show. I tried to avoid her, taking longer routes or waiting until she was busy, but she always found a way to hurt me. One day, while I was reading quietly, she walked in and pinched my arm hard, for no reason. Her nails dug into my skin, and I winced in pain, but I held back any cry of protest. She looked at me with a cold, triumphant smirk before walking away. During one of Grandma's rare visits, she noticed my cautious movements and how I flinched at Marissa's voice echoing through the house. Anna, is everything all right at home? Grandma asked, her voice filled with concern. I looked at her, my heart aching to tell her the truth, but fear and the desire to protect her held me back. Yes, Grandma, everything's fine. Just a lot of schoolwork, I lied, forcing a smile. She seemed unsure but didn't press further. I felt guilty for deceiving her, but I couldn't bear causing her distress. That evening, as Grandma left, I saw Marissa watching from the window, a satisfied expression on her face. It was as if she enjoyed having control over me, knowing she could hurt me and get away with it. Her triumphant look made it clear she was in power, and I was just a helpless player in her twisted game. I retreated to my room, feeling trapped in a cycle of abuse and silence. The physical pain from Marissa's pinches and twists was bearable compared to the emotional turmoil I felt. School became my sanctuary, a place where I could briefly escape my home life's misery. But even there, the shadows of my struggles at home began to seep through. My teacher, Mrs. Thompson, a kind-hearted woman who always encouraged her students, started to notice changes in me. One day, as I handed in my homework, she gently grabbed my wrist, her eyes drawn to the bruises. Anna, what happened here? These look like bruises, she said, her voice filled with concern. I quickly pulled my arm back, covering the bruises with my sleeve. It's nothing, Mrs. Thompson. I fell while playing, I lied, avoiding her gaze. Mrs. Thompson didn't look convinced. Anna, if there is something wrong, or if someone is hurting you, you can tell me. It's important to speak out, she urged, her eyes searching mine for the truth. I wanted to confide in her, to tell her everything about Marissa and how I lived in constant fear. But the words wouldn't come. Instead, I forced a smile. Really, Mrs. Thompson, I'm fine. It was just a silly accident, I insisted. She gave me a long, thoughtful look, then nodded slowly. All right, Anna, but remember, my door is always open. You're not alone, she said, giving me a reassuring smile. I nodded, feeling a lump form in my throat. Her kindness made it harder to keep pretending everything was okay. As I walked home that day, Mrs. Thompson's words echoed in my mind. I felt grateful for her concern, but also deeply lonely, carrying my burdens alone. The idea of telling the truth about my home life was terrifying. I feared what Marissa might do if she found out I had told someone. That night at dinner, lost in thought about Mrs. Thompson's offer to help, Marissa noticed my silence. Why so quiet tonight, Anna? Cat got your tongue? She asked mockingly. I just shook my head and continued eating. trying to make myself as small and unnoticeable as possible. After dinner, lying in bed, the reality of my situation felt overwhelming. Mrs. Thompson's concern showed me that people cared, but the fear of what might happen if I revealed the truth kept me silent. I was torn between wanting to tell someone desperately and fearing Marissa's retaliation, a balancing act I faced every day. The day Mrs. Thompson decided to involve my father was filled with anxiety and dread for me. Sitting in the principal's office, I fidgeted nervously, fearing my father's reaction. When he finally arrived, his face was stern, his eyes betraying irritation and embarrassment. "What's this about, Anna? Why am I being called to your school like this?" he demanded sharply as he walked in. I glanced at Mrs. Thompson, seeking support. Swallowing hard, I tried to find my voice. "Dad, Mrs. Thompson saw. She saw the bruises," I stammered, feeling the weight of his gaze on me. Before I could explain further, he interrupted, his anger palpable. "Bruises? What are you talking about? Are you making up stories again?" Mrs. Thompson stepped in, her tone firm yet calm. "Mr. Smith, I'm concerned about Anna's well-being. The bruises on her arm don't seem accidental. We need to address this." My father's face turned darker with anger. "She's perfectly safe at home, Anna." "Are you spreading lies about our family?" he asked, turning towards me. His disappointment was clear, and the tears I had been holding back started to spill. "It's not lies, Dad. Marissa, she's been hurting me," I managed to say, finally letting out the truth. His reaction was one of total disbelief. "Marissa? That's ridiculous. She's been nothing but kind to you. I won't have you slandering her with these accusations," he said firmly. But I couldn't stay silent. "But Dad, it's the truth," I cried out, desperate for him to believe me. He stood up abruptly, his patience wearing thin. "Enough of this. Tell Mrs. Thompson you made it all up," he ordered. Obediently, I turned to the teacher and repeated his words. She nodded back, not saying anything. Upon reaching home, without another word, he locked me in my room. Through the door, I could hear Marissa's voice, dripping with false concern. "I told you she's just seeking attention," she said. I sat on my bed, feeling profoundly isolated and despairing. The one person I thought I could always count on had turned his back on me. The walls of my room, which had once felt like my personal haven, now felt like the walls of a prison. I lay there, thinking about everything that had happened. The physical pain of the abuse was nothing compared to the emotional torment of being disbelieved and punished by my own father. It was a harsh realization that the person who was supposed to protect and love me unconditionally was now the source of my deepest pain. The days following my confinement in my room were some of the darkest I had ever experienced. Trapped and feeling utterly alone, I realized that my only hope lay in my grandmother, my father's mother. She was a kind and loving woman who had always shown me affection, but I had never dared to burden her with my troubles at home. One evening, when I was sure Marissa and my father were occupied, I mustered the courage to call my grandmother. My hands were shaking as I dialed her number. "Hello!" Her familiar warm voice came through the phone. "Grandma, it's me, Anna," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Anna, my dear, how are you?" she asked, her tone filled with genuine care. Tears welled up in my eyes as I replied. "Grandma, I need help. Can I come and stay with you for a while?" There was a moment of silence on the other end. "What's wrong, Anna? Did something happen?" I took a deep breath, the words rushing out. "It's Marissa. She's been hurting me. And Dad won't believe me. I don't know what to do." I could hear the concern in her voice as she quickly responded, "Of course, my dear. You come right over. I'll take care of this." The next day, my grandmother arrived. She was a small woman, but her presence filled the room. She confronted my father with a strength that surprised me. "John, I'm taking Anna with me. She's not safe here," she declared firmly. My father, taken aback, tried to protest. "Mom, you can't just take her. She's my daughter." "Your daughter, whom you failed to protect. she countered sharply. I won't stand by and watch her suffer. Marissa tried to intervene. She's just a child making up stories. You can't believe her over us. Grandma turned to Marissa, her eyes steely. I know a scared child when I see one. Anna is coming with me, and if you try to stop me, I'll take this matter to the authorities. My father, realizing he was defeated, didn't put up any further resistance. As I gathered my things, I saw Marissa's expression change from defiant to defeated. Leaving the house with my grandmother, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. For the first time in months, I felt safe. The car ride to Grandma's was quiet, but her presence was comforting. Once we arrived, she turned to me and said, "You're safe now, Anna. You don't have to worry anymore." In my grandmother's house, I found the love and security that had been missing in my life. It was a haven where I could heal and regain my strength. The contrast between her nurturing home and the coldness of my father's house was stark. For the first time in a long while, I felt like I could breathe again, free from the fear and anxiety that had plagued me. Years had passed since I left my father's house to live with my grandmother. Her home had been a sanctuary, a place of healing and love. But time, as it does, moved on and brought another wave of change. My beloved grandmother passed away, leaving a void that seemed impossible to fill. At the funeral, my father and Marissa showed up, their faces a mix of feigned sorrow and poorly disguised eagerness. It was clear they were more interested in what they might gain from her passing than mourning her loss. After the funeral, as we gathered at my grandmother's house, Marissa wasted no time. "Well, Anna, I suppose you'll be finding a new place to live now. This house and everything in it belongs to your father now," she said, her voice tinged with barely concealed glee. My father nodded in agreement, scanning the room as if already planning what to do with the house. I couldn't help but smile, a reaction that seemed to confuse them. "Actually, that's where you're wrong," I said, the confidence in my voice taking them by surprise. "What do you mean?" my father asked, his expression shifting to one of confusion. I took a deep breath, savoring the moment. Grandma left a will. She bequeathed the house and a substantial amount of money to me, I explained, watching as their expressions changed from confusion to shock. But you're just a child. I'm your father. I should be in charge of any inheritance you receive." My father stammered, his sense of entitlement clear. Marissa chimed in, her voice shrill. "Yes, until you come of age, your father will manage your property. Good prospects." Their reactions were almost amusing. "You don't give a damn about me so much that you didn't even wish me a happy birthday." I turned 18 a month ago. I'm legally an adult now. I make my own decisions, I stated firmly, relishing the look of realization dawning on their faces. My father's expression turned from shock to anger, then to a sort of desperate pleading. "Anna, you can't do this. We're your family," he said. I looked at them, memories of my childhood flooding back. "You stopped being my family a long time ago," I said, my voice steady. Marissa stepped forward, her tone now begging. "At least let us stay in the house. We have nowhere else to go. We have not extended the lease of our house." I shook my head. "This is my house now. You'll need to find somewhere else." As they left, the weight of years of pain and neglect seemed to lift off my shoulders. I stood in the house that was now mine, a house filled with memories of my grandmother's love, and felt a sense of closure. The echoes of the past my father's call stirred remained. I sat there, phone in hand, feeling a tumult of emotions, anger, betrayal, and a sense of injustice. But amid all that, there was also a sense of strength, a reminder of the resilience that had carried me through the darkest of times.